My name is Emily Carter. I'm 33 years old, and if you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you I was living the life I always dreamed of: a stable job, two beautiful kids, and a husband who adores me. But that all changed this past Mother's Day. It was supposed to be a simple family brunch at my parents' house. I dressed my kids, Sophie, age 7, and Ethan, age 5, in their Sunday best, packed the flowers and the card we'd made for my mom, and drove over with a smile I was trying hard to make real. I should have known better. As soon as we sat down, my mom, Linda, started with her usual passive-aggressive comments. "Sophie's hair looks messy. You really let them dress themselves?" I swallowed it like I always do. But then, as I passed the fruit bowl to Ethan, she laughed, loud enough for everyone at the table, and said, "You know, Emily, sometimes I wonder if you were ever meant to be a mom. You're just not real mom material." The room went quiet. My kids froze. Sophie's big blue eyes flicked to mine, confused, as if silently asking if Grandma was right. Something inside me cracked. I smiled politely, but my hands were shaking. I didn't even taste the rest of the food. I just kept thinking, if my own mother sees me this way, in front of my children, how much longer can I keep letting this happen? That day, I didn't just lose my appetite. I lost the last piece of hope that my mom would ever see me for who I really am. Growing up in the Carter house was like living under a microscope. Every move I made was judged, measured, and almost always found lacking. My mom, Linda, has always been perfect, at least in her own eyes. The kind of woman who color-coded the pantry and sent Christmas cards to everyone she'd ever met. And if you didn't fit into her idea of perfect, well, you'd hear about it. I was the middle child between my older sister, Rachel, and my younger brother, Tyler. Rachel was the golden girl. Straight-A student, cheer captain. The one Mom loved to brag about at church potlucks. I, on the other hand, was quiet, clumsy, and more interested in drawing than sports. I still remember the day I came home crying because another kid called me shy girl. My dad, Mark, patted my head and said, "You'll grow out of it." Mom just sighed and told me, "Emily, you can't go through life being so sensitive. Nobody respects weak people." That word, weak, stuck to me like glue. Every time I cried, every time I failed, every time I wanted to be comforted, I could hear her voice in my head telling me to toughen up. When Rachel got into college, there was a big celebration. When I got into a local community college, Mom said, "At least you'll be close to home. Maybe we can keep you out of trouble." I spent most of my teenage years trying to earn her approval, cleaning the kitchen spotless, winning small art competitions, babysitting Tyler so she could go out with friends. Nothing ever seemed good enough. Even as an adult, I still catch myself wondering if maybe she was right. Maybe I was too soft, too emotional, too wrong to be the daughter she wanted. That's why her words on Mother's Day cut so deep. It wasn't just one comment. It was the echo of every time she'd told me I wasn't enough. By the time I became a mother myself, I thought things might finally change between Mom and me. I imagine her teaching me family recipes, showing up to help with the kids, maybe even telling me she was proud of me. But reality was different. When Sophie was born, I called Mom from the hospital, exhausted and euphoric. Her first words weren't congratulations. They were, "I hope you know what you're doing. Babies are a lot of work." That pretty much set the tone for the next 7 years. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, colic that had me rocking Sophie at 3 a.m. with tears streaming down my face. I got through all of it mostly on my own. My husband, Daniel, helped when he could, but he worked long hours to keep us afloat. Mom would occasionally visit, but rather than helping, she'd sit on the couch and comment on how messy the living room was or how I looked tired, as if it were a personal failure. When Ethan was born, things didn't get easier. Money was tight. I was juggling 2 kids and a part-time job, and yet I kept trying to impress her. I made photo books of the kids for her birthdays, hosted family dinners even when I could barely afford groceries, and invited her to every school event. But instead of gratitude, I got criticism. "She's too skinny. Are you feeding her enough? Ethan's too quiet. Boys should be louder. Daniel works too much. Maybe he doesn't want to be around you. Each comment chipped away at me until I started questioning everything: my parenting, my marriage, my worth as a woman. I kept thinking that if I just tried harder, smiled more, cooked better, kept my house cleaner, maybe one day she would look at me and say, "You're a good mom." But that day never came. By the time last Mother's Day rolled around, I was emotionally running on fumes. I told Daniel I wanted this brunch to go well, that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. It wasn't. And sitting there at that table, listening to her words pierce through me in front of Sophie and Ethan, I realized it didn't matter how hard I tried. It was never going to be enough for her. That Mother's Day brunch was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it felt like a public execution. After my mom said it, "You're just not real mom material," the room fell silent. The only sound was the clinking of a fork hitting a plate. I could feel Sophie's little hand slide into mine under the table, as if she sensed I was about to cry. Ethan stared down at his scrambled eggs, his lip trembling. Daniel sat there, his jaw tight, but he didn't say a word. I tried to laugh it off. "Wow, Mom, that's harsh." But she just shrugged. "I'm just being honest. You're too emotional. Kids need discipline, not a best friend." Something inside me snapped. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. I felt everyone's eyes on me, but I didn't care anymore. I looked at my kids and forced a smile for them, not for her. Then, I reached into my bag, pulled out the bouquet of tulips we'd brought, and set them gently on the table in front of her. "Happy Mother's Day, Mom," I said quietly. My voice didn't shake this time. Then I took Sophie and Ethan by the hand and walked out. No one followed. No one called after me. When we got to the car, I buckled the kids in and just sat there gripping the steering wheel, my chest heaving. Sophie whispered, "Mommy, why did Grandma say that?" I looked at her in the rearview mirror, my eyes wet, and said the hardest words I'd ever had to say. "Because sometimes grown-ups are wrong, sweetheart. And what she said about me isn't true." In that moment, I knew I couldn't keep exposing my kids, or myself, to this pain. That was the day I decided something had to change. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table with a cup of cold tea and stared at the wall. The house was quiet, too quiet, and yet my mom's words kept echoing in my head. Not real mom material. I realized I had two choices: keep trying to earn her love and let my kids grow up watching me be torn apart, or finally break the cycle and show them what self-respect looks like. The decision hurt, but it was clear. Over the next few weeks, I started making changes. Small ones at first, ignoring her calls, muting the family group chat, spending weekends just with my kids instead of driving across town for Sunday dinners. Then came the bigger steps. I sold the extra furniture that made the house feel cluttered with memories I didn't want anymore. I cut down my work hours at the office and started a small online business, selling the art I'd been making in secret for years. Eventually, I told Daniel I wanted to move. A fresh start, somewhere my kids and I wouldn't feel judged every time we stepped into a family gathering. To my surprise, he agreed. We found a cozy rental in a small town about 2 hours away. The kind of place where neighbors bring over pies when you move in and kids ride their bikes down the street until sunset. It wasn't easy at first. There were nights I cried after putting the kids to bed, wondering if I'd done the right thing. I worried they'd miss their grandparents. I worried I was being too dramatic. But slowly something shifted. I started going to therapy. I joined a local moms group, where no one cared if my hair was in a messy bun or if my kids wore mismatched socks. Sophie started taking art classes, and Ethan made a best friend next door. And me? I started to breathe again. I learned that I could trust my instincts as a mom, that my kids were safe, happy, and loved. For the first time in years, I felt like I was becoming the kind of mother I had always wanted to be. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building a life where my kids and I could actually thrive. For a few months after we moved, it was quiet. Too quiet. Then the messages started. First, it was Rachel, my sister. A casual text. "Mom's been asking about you. She misses the kids. Maybe you should call her." I ignored it. Then came the guilt trips. Emily, you know she's getting older. What if something happens and you regret not making amends? And then the phone call. I almost didn't pick up when I saw Mom's name flash on the screen. But a part of me still hoped she might finally say what I needed to hear for 33 years. She didn't. Her voice was soft, almost sweet. Emily, I just don't understand why you've cut us out. You're hurting the whole family. Your kids deserve grandparents. I deserve to see them. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Mom, you humiliated me in front of my kids. I can't let them grow up thinking that's okay. There was a pause. Then the familiar sting. Oh, for heaven's sake, you're still upset about that? You're so dramatic, Emily. You've always been too sensitive. That was all I needed to hear. I'm not doing this anymore, I said and hung up. After that, things escalated. Rachel sent pictures of family gatherings we weren't at. Tyler called once to tell me Mom had been sick, only for me to find out later it was a mild cold. They wanted me back, but not because they had changed. They just wanted the old me, the quiet, compliant daughter who never pushed back. But that version of me was gone. This time I didn't fold. Instead of feeling guilty, I felt stronger. I was teaching my kids the most important lesson of all, that love doesn't have to hurt. It's been almost a year since that Mother's Day brunch. Sometimes, when I'm tucking Sophie and Ethan into bed, I still think about my mom, about what could have been if things were different. But then I look at my kids' faces, happy and safe, and I know I made the right choice. Last week, Sophie brought home a handmade card from school. It had a picture of me in the middle, with the words, "My mom is the strongest person I know." I cried when I read it. Not because it hurt, but because it healed something inside me. I used to believe that being a good daughter meant sacrificing my own happiness, letting myself be torn down just to keep the peace. But now I know that real love doesn't demand that you shrink yourself to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. Walking away from my mom wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of survival. And in doing so, I showed my kids what healthy boundaries look like. I showed them that you're allowed to walk away from people, even family, who refuse to love you with kindness and respect. My life isn't perfect now. There are still moments when I miss the idea of having a mother I could lean on. But I'm no longer chasing something that was never real. I am not just real mom material. I am the real mom my kids need. And if there's one thing I want anyone listening to take away from my story, it's this. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Family isn't proven by blood. It's proven by love. And that is the kind of family I'm building every single day.